You're in for such a treat. I'm so excited for you to hear from my new friend, Robert Heath Sr. He's got some amazing books. He's got some free resources that are in the show notes if you want to take advantage of those. He's super generous in giving those out to us. If you're on um, YouTube or Spotify and you're watching this, not just listening to it, you're noticing the background's different. We have moved as a family. We're moving towards this idea of a family compound. We're going to be spending some time traveling, which we're super excited about. I'm probably going to be building out a studio, so you're going to be seeing some different backgrounds. This will be super fun, but just wanted to kind of give you that heads up. Super excited for you to hear this conversation with my new friend, Robert.
Welcome to Market Mavericks. I'm Matthew Eford. Join me as I speak with leaders who are redefining industries in every corner of the market. From startups to established businesses, we'll uncover the strategies, challenges, and insights that drive success. Get ready to be inspired by the Mavericks who are shaping the future of business.
Welcome, everybody, to Market Mavericks. I'm your host, Matthew Eford, and I have my new friend here with me, Robert Heath Sr. I'm so excited to speak with Robert. Before I do, I want to mention our flagship sponsor of the podcast here, which is Lighting Pros. We're in the shirt that they've been sponsoring us since day one, so I'm so excited for them. So I just want to read just a little bit of information about Lighting Pros. They want you to consider this. Want a business that truly lights up lives in your own? Look no further than Lighting Pros franchise. We're the trusted leader in premier outdoor lighting solutions, and we're expanding with passionate entrepreneurs across the country. Imagine the satisfaction of creating stunning outdoor spaces backed by a proving business model, extensive training, and unwavering support. Say goodbye to seasonal winter slumps and hello to a growing year-round opportunity with low startup costs and incredible demand. Ready to step into a brighter future? Visit lightingprosfranchise.com and discover how Lighting Pros can illuminate your path to success. That's lightingprosfranchise.com. Your vision perfectly lit. Robert, man, I'm so excited for your time. Thank you so much for sharing it. And I'm excited to hear more about your book. Before we get there, you were saying this just before we started on. You're a Marine. So thank you for your service. Tell us, how did you get into the Marines? Those who may not know you, give us just kind of a quick intro. Who is Robert Heath? Where we find you today?
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, brother. I really appreciate being here. The long story, a little bit less long, as I like to say. I got to the Marine Corps, and that was one of the stops along my way in my kind of leadership journey, which started, when I was really in high school and recognizing the differences between kind of where I lived, where I went to high school, where I went to, and the things that I got to see, and the things that a lot of my friends or a lot of my family members got to see. I always say I grew up kind of hood adjacent, so I was never
Okay.
we didn't reside. Our address wasn't in the hood, but there were a couple of times where our address was in the hood, and we had to use my grandmother's address so I could go to different schools and stuff like that, right? And what it allowed me to do was to see different things. And so the story that I have is a little bit. I call myself a career renaissance man. Some people might say I have career ADD. I'll let you all decide after you hear the
Oh man,
story.
I love that.
But I got to the Marine Corps at a time where I was really searching. Um, and I had come to it from, like I said, growing up and seeing different ways of living and seeing the urban problems that plagued a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I cared about. I wanted to fix it. So originally, when I got out of college, I went and got a master's degree in teaching. I became a Spanish teacher, basketball coach, right,
Wow,
school
yeah.
improvement team coordinator. I was doing all the things to try to become a superintendent and make education be the pathway out. And
Okay.
I was teaching down in Memphis, Tennessee. At the time, it was the 20th largest school district in the country, and there was a superintendent that was there that was from Memphis. Like, she was basically me in 20 years, right? She had got all the credentials, had the degrees behind her name, the
Okay.
letters behind her name, everything. She was qualified. And I actually believed in what she was doing, so much so that I had given up my summer to do in services and stuff. And I was going and doing all the extra work. And then 18 months later, she wasn't there. And it
Wow.
wasn't scandal. It wasn't, that she had done something nefarious or any rest of that. It was what I now understand to be a lack of leadership ability, a lack of leadership skills, right? He was one of those people that was qualified to do the work, but didn't know how to lead people to get the work done. And that
Wow.
was something that I was
Okay.
like, oh, uh, I think that's like me in 20 years because like I thought she was doing a great job until I found
Sure.
out that she wasn't, right? Um, and I started realizing that I need to learn leadership. So long
So
story,
how
like I
did
said, a little bit less long.
let me interrupt just so how
Yeah.
did you find out that she wasn't a good leader? But what was that
So
epiphany for you?
yeah, a lot of it was looking at and seeing what were a lot of things that were going on. So, like I said, I was involved in a lot of different spaces. So, I was a union representative. One of my best friends was the world languages director. So, she was kind of
Okay.
the district head of our
Okay.
department for the entire district. I had a cousin that worked down at the board. I had a friend that was a judge in town, and he knew, a lot of the political people and all the rest.
Sure.
So, a lot of the things that I could hear that were going on from the teachers unions to the political engines to the business communities, everything that was going on, you got to hear how people were not following behind this vision. You got to
Wow.
hear all of the things that were going on behind the scenes that you just began to notice that people were not bought in. And because people were not bought in, but they felt like they were being forced to do something, you could see just all of the passive aggressiveness that was going
Sure.
on. And it really
Sure.
just it was people dragging their feet all over the district. And that was something that again, I hadn't anticipated, nor did I understand what she had did to cause it. But over time I realized that I needed to learn how to do it differently if I was going to get a different result. Right.
Okay. Okay.
And so I went on a really a 10-year kind of leadership sojourn. I went to two different places. I went to law school because one of the things that I realized was there were a lot more levers involved in moving society and changing things than I originally had anticipated, right?
Sure.
There were rules that governed what was going on that I didn't even understand. I didn't understand how the city dealt with the county, dealt with the state as far as education was concerned and all the rest of that. And those were some of the things that were obstacles that came in her way. So I went to law school to really understand our system of laws. How do we govern ourselves? Where's our social contract come from? Where are the levels of power? And then I went to your question, the greatest leadership training academy, in my personal opinion, in the history of the world, the United States Marine Corps officer programs, and I became a Marine Corps officer.
Wow.
And for me, it was a journey and really learning and understanding how to lead people, how to be that type of leader that gets people to do the hard stuff, the difficult stuff, the things that they would not do otherwise. And how do you take ordinary people and get them to do extraordinary things? And so that's really the long and short of how I got there at 30 years old,
Man.
just before a month before my 30th birthday, commissioning as a Marine Corps officer.
Man, that's incredible. Well, thank you for your service. Again, I said that
Appreciate you, brother.
offline. I say that online, man. I admire that a lot, but don't say that lightly. So
Thank
when
you.
you look at the Marine Corps and you look
Hmm.
at they're getting people to do things that they may not want to do and definitely don't think that they
Hmm.
can do. Okay, so
Hmm.
take that to the small business owner, right? We're just going to kind
Yeah.
of jump in the deep end here for a second.
Hmm.
So many business owners are struggling with this, right? That they've
Yes.
got a small team or they're trying to hire a team and they're
Hmm.
thinking about, I just want them to do what I'm wanting them to. Okay,
Hmm.
speak
Hmm.
to that person. What
Yeah.
did you learn through the Marine Corps? How are you helping? Because you do a lot of consulting, you're doing writing
Hmm.
now. What advice would you have to that small business owner that's out there that's hearing that, that's saying, I don't have the maybe the time or even the desire to go through the Marine
Yeah.
Corps training to learn myself. What advice would you have for that individual?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I do, and you're right, I've coached hundreds of business owners now in the time since I've gotten out of the Marine Corps in this exact thing. And the first thing that I tell everybody is, right, first of all, take a breath and give yourself a little bit of grace for what you don't know. Right.
I love
Because a
that.
lot of
Yeah,
times we feel
amen.
like we're supposed to know how to do it. We're supposed to be good at this. We're starting a business. We should know the answers. We should know how to do this. And I just want to tell you right now, if you're struggling with this, you're not supposed to know how to do it. It's actually abnormal to be a good leader,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the reason it's abnormal is because everything that you have done up to this point has been about being a good professional.
Okay.
It's been about how do you figure out how to be the best at your task, and most importantly, how do you figure out how to eliminate all the distractions so that you can be a get it done person? You don't tap into other people's emotions. You don't tap into other people's obstacles. You actually say, look, that ain't having anything to do with me, right? Rub some dirt on it, suck it up, buttercup, let's go, right? And that is what where most of us excel and become amazing professionals. The problem is that when you become a leader, the reason that you're a leader in society in general, even in your business. The reason that you become a business owner who has a staff versus a solopreneur who can do it all themselves is because the work necessitates you having more people. The work gets bigger than you, right? And normally, what happens if you're in corporate America, what'll happen is they'll say, "Hey, you're really great at this. How about you take these 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 mediocre people and make them better?" Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And and the problem is you don't have that skill set. None of the things that you have done to this point have been about helping other people with different strengths, with different weaknesses, with different idiosyncrasies, with different hangups, with different past traumas that they're dealing with, all the rest of that. Nothing that you have done has prepared you to deal with their mess. You've been
Amen.
doing the best you could to deal with your mess this entire time. And so the first thing that I say is like take a breath and realize that it's okay that you don't know this. It's not a mark of bad character. It's not that you're not a good person. I remember when I was first coming up, and one of the biggest kind of aha moments that I had was I used to think that if you were a bad leader, it was because you didn't care about people, you were lazy, or you had a ego that was just power hungry and just
Yeah.
trying to do everything all about you, right?
Yeah.
And then I got to see and learn and engage with a bunch of leaders. And I saw so many leaders who were suffering in silence because they were actually some of the biggest hearted people that I knew. They worked super long hours trying to do the best they could. And they just cared about the mission, right? But they were struggling nonetheless. And once I figured that out, once I saw that, right, it hurt my heart. And one of the things that I was blessed with was I was good at learning this, right? I commanded a company of over 300 Marines and sailors, one of the largest companies in the Marine Corps. And
Wow.
when I was done with my term, I had a number of different leadership opportunities. I received the Navy Marine Corps Commendation Medal for leading that company. I got to see that I was actually pretty decent at this, right?
Sure.
I still got tons to learn, but I was pretty good at it compared to my peers. And I had the ability to teach. And so I would sit and I would talk to people every once in a while and I would give them things and they'd be like, "Oh, I never thought about it like that." Or, "Oh, thanks so much." Right. And I started seeing that, okay, I can help. And that's when I really started thinking about how I could do more because the beauty of it is helping leaders. I get to help the people that they lead as well. Because
Sure.
leaders hate that their people are suffering under them. They just don't know what else to do, right? The first book that I wrote was actually a book specifically to leaders who wanted to be engaging, wanted to be empowering leaders. It was a book titled "Why Can't People Just Do Their Jobs?"
What a great book title. When I saw that, I thought that is so good.
Right. And it was with that heart to those entrepreneurs and those people out there saying, "Hey, like I get it. I know that this is the question that you're wondering, and there's a better way."
So give us some takeaways from that book, right? We're kind of in this mentality of we take a deep breath, we understand, there's grace for us. God gives us grace for that. We're here. We always can learn. We always can grow. We always can mature. We
Mhm.
can always get better. Okay,
Yeah.
talk about that specific book. What are some takeaways?
Yeah.
What are some action items that solopreneurs or small business owners or entrepreneurs that are listening to this, they can take away some action steps and even transfer that down to their team, right? They're helping now mentor their young leaders or their newer managers within their organization to
Yeah.
become better leaders.
Yeah, no, great question. And so in that book, I kind of lay out my empower framework, right? And there's 7 real key steps and key learnings that you have to take to be a engaging and empowering leader, right? The
Okay.
first one is that you got to evaluate your expectations. Oftentimes we have way higher expectations because we can see the potential in people, but we're
Yeah.
expecting it to turn over tomorrow
Yeah.
instead of understanding that we've got to have short-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals. And our
Love that.
job is not to just see the amazingness that they can be, is to facilitate, is to help. So that's the overarching thing is that leadership is not about what you do as much as it is about what you help to get done. So we say leadership is facilitating the manifestation of greatness in others,
There we go. Yeah. Say that again.
right? Leadership is facilitating the manifestation of greatness in others, right? It comes from the Latin root. The Latin root of that word is the word facile, and facile means easy, right? And so to facilitate is to make easier the greatness that you see in somebody. If you're leading them, you're making it easier for them to be great. You're making it easier for them
Love
to
that.
demonstrate that greatness. And a lot of that requires us to first see that greatness, but second, for us to become a chief obstacle remover instead of being a chief problem solver,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? they have the skills. They can think, they can innovate, they can create. So our goal is to try to help them figure out how to do that. So like I said, the first step, the E in empower is examine and evaluate your expectations. Then the M in empower is you got to manage their expectations. Because another thing that you got to realize is when people see your vision and they see that they're on the team, right? They're on the team with Matthew and he's a rock star. They start expecting that they're going to just do all of this stuff and they'll rush towards burnout, and they will be overly disappointed when they're not hitting what they want to hit. And we as leaders have to be able to hold space for the transformation, both with our expectations, but also with managing their expectations of what they're going to be able to accomplish in a short amount of time. Right.
Fantastic point. Yeah, yeah.
There's so many leaders and especially entrepreneurs out there, right? I always would tell my team, I say, like, I live 5 years in the future. I just come back to the present to visit y'all, right? Like, and so many entrepreneurs are in that space. Like, we're visionaries. We see so much. And oftentimes we're also very good at what we do, right? We're very good at problem solving, or we're very good at whatever the key core things of the business are. And a lot of times the people that you're bringing onto the team may not be as good at vision casting or at, strategy or at analysis as you are, but they're really good at whatever their task is in the business. And sometimes they'll get disappointed because they're not as good at these other things that we don't really need them to be good at. We've got to manage their expectations and help them understand, like, here's your box. And if you're doing this box well, you're rocking it out. You're doing exactly what we need you to do for the company. Don't judge yourself based on
I
these other
love that.
criteria, right? There's this
So
famous quote by Einstein that I love. It says, everybody is a genius. However, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll spend its entire life thinking that it's stupid.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, that's a fantastic quote, right? And to see what lane we're in, we've got these abilities, got these God-given abilities that, like, this is just my lane. And when I'm
Yes.
in my lane, man, I can crush it and I can run hard and I
Hmm.
can swim far and I can do all these tricks. But when I try to get out of my lane, man, I suffer. So help me
Yeah.
understand, help our audience understand the managing expectations. How do we
Mhm.
help define those lanes for our
Yes.
employees? What
Yeah.
advice would you have around that? Is that
Yeah.
looking at job descriptions, going over those better? Is it looking at
Hmm.
weekly check-ins, monthly check-ins, 30 day, 60-day, 90 goal? Like, what? Help me kind of
Hmm.
put some parameters around that.
Yeah, there are a number of different tools you want to use, and one of them is you want to take inventory of what are the strengths of your team, right? So simple things that I work over with my clients. If you many of your clients have probably done like a SWOT analysis before, right?
Yeah,
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you want to really look at it, but you want to look at it in the way that we do it is you don't just look at it in general. You look at it in specifically short term, mid-term, and then long term, right?
great point.
Oftentimes when you're talking about your strengths and your weaknesses, those are related to things that you're dealing with right now, because you can augment strengths and you can reduce and mitigate weaknesses, and then they change over time. Opportunities and threats similarly, what are we looking at in the next 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months, and what opportunities are coming about that our strengths will allow us to take advantage of? And then what are the things that our weaknesses, what are the opportunities that our weaknesses will actually take away from our ability to take advantage of? Right.
Sure.
And then in the long term, what are the things that threaten us as a business, as an enterprise? Are they environmental? Are they in our market? Are they, political, right? A lot of businesses in 24 and 25, one of the things that was that's been happening is there's been a contraction of the economy because there's a lot of uncertainty. And you have to be aware of those cycles. It happens every 4 years, right? Like if you look back and businesses can see this. So you have to have your team prepared for it. And what are we going to
Sure.
do to mitigate these things? So that's one of the tools that I would have people use. Another tool, um, especially when you're managing their expectations, is to really get tapped into their why instead of their how, right? A lot of times we focus on what people do and how people get the work done instead of understanding that, as Nietzsche said, a person with a strong enough why can endure almost any how.
Amen.
Right. And so when we get one of the assessments that we use is an assessment called the why operating system assessment, right? And so we help people to discover why they do what they do, how their strengths interact with that, and then what are they normally expected to deliver. And so they get a holistic understanding of who they are instead of just, knowing what their strengths are, but that divorced from what their job is. And so we really go through and help teams to understand each other so they can communicate better with each other. Because depending on what my why is, even if we have the same job, if my why is different, you need to talk to me differently about that job so that I can understand it better, right? So
Fantastic
that it
point. Yeah.
aligns with me.
Yeah. I
So
love that.
those are some of the things that we do in that space. And then, the other five steps, right? The P, we really get people to prioritize and practice proper delegation. Right? There's a
Okay.
way to delegate, and a lot of times people mess it up. Right? Most people try to tell people what to do instead of what to accomplish.
Okay. Break that down for me.
Right? So there's a difference between in the Marine Corps when we learned orders, the orders process. One of the things that we have is what's called commander's intent. And in any order, even if you don't have all of the other stuff, right? If you have commander's intent, you can go and figure out how to accomplish the task. And commander's intent is basically an end state and a purpose, right? So an end state is, for example, I want all the windows in the building clean, right?
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of different ways to clean the windows in the building. I can go hire
Sure.
a cleaning service. I can do it by hand. I can, delegate some people in the office to do it. There's a ton of ways to do it. But the question that's in my head that kind of mitigates between which one of these ways is best is, well, why are we getting them clean? Right? Are we getting them clean for a photo shoot? Are we getting them clean just so that we can have a spring cleaning? Are we getting them clean so that it can look good outside for a client that's about to come by? What's the purpose, right? Because are we cleaning the windows just on the outside? Are we cleaning the windows on the outside or the inside? Right? I was watching one of the other episodes you had with a gentleman out in Colorado, and he was talking about how a whole new business spawned because they were cleaning
Yeah.
inside and outside
Yeah.
because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
And those are the types of things that your people need to know, because then they can bring you the solutions, or they don't even have to bring them to you. They can figure out solutions that accomplish your goal. So if I said, I need the windows clean because we need to disinfect the building, then I know that what you're really talking about is getting into the cracks and crevices inside the building. I'm not worried about the outside. That's not necessary. If I can hire somebody, I can do something real quick to get that done. But I want to make sure I'm disinfecting inside the crevices. Those are the types of things that a lot of entrepreneurs, we get so flustered and so frustrated that we forget that in order for somebody to take ownership, in order for me to truly empower you, I have to enable you to get the job done.
I love
Can't
that.
just tell you kind of go that direction, right? We've got to tell you why you're going that direction, and what the definition of done looks like so you'll know when you're there.
I love that. What an incredible distinction, right? I know for me in my entrepreneurial journey, throughout my leadership journey, so often, especially early on, I'm getting better. I
Hmm.
would dump instead of delegate, right? I would just say, "Hey,
Yes.
this is the thing in my head that needs to be accomplished. I'm just going to tell you, and I'm expecting you to hear what's in my head, hearing all those other pieces, hearing the way I
Yes.
expect it to be done, hearing why it should be done." As an entrepreneur, a lot of my heart is around problem solving and
Hmm.
creating. And I see the vision as like, well, of course we see that. Like everyone
Hmm.
should see that. But I love that you're
Hmm.
giving the distinction of like, no, all of our team doesn't see that. So let's make it really clear. Simon Sinek's
Yes.
got a fantastic book about start with why, right? Let's give the
Exactly.
reason why we're doing this, show them what it looks like to be done. Man, that's
Hmm.
awesome. Okay, so
Yeah.
give me the O. Let's keep
So
going
yeah,
through
so
your
the
first
so
book.
the O is optimizing your environment for growth. So one of the things that's necessary is you have to create a situation where failure is not punished, where failure is actually encouraged, right? Now there's two different types of failure. You've got catastrophic failure where either you can get fired, I can get fired, the business can go out of business. Like, we want to make sure that those don't happen.
Sure.
But everywhere else, we want people to fail and to learn and then to grow. And we don't want them kind of walking around on eggshells, scared to do anything, right? Because most people, what we get is a lack of innovation, a lack of initiative, because everybody's like, I want to stay in my box. I know
Yeah.
I won't get in trouble right here. But right here is competence. And every one of us that's a business owner knows that if you're hiring somebody, you need more than just competence, right? Competence, if you're incompetent, I'm firing you, right? And most
Yeah.
of us think that we pay for excellent performance. That's not the case. We pay salaries most often, right? If you're running a well run business, you're paying salaries at the level of competence and you're hoping for excellence, right? And basically,
Great
what you're doing is you're
distinction.
paying people not to get fired, right?
It's
And so
such a good distinction.
and it's incentivized, right? They're making sure they don't get fired. But what we've got to do is we've got to realize that if we want excellence, we can't pay for it right now. That's not how a business works, right? There's cash cycles, and we know that we need to make sure that they perform excellently. Then we get the arbitrage from them performing
Sure.
excellently. So now we have profits that we can that we can distribute. That we can do uh, uh, different distribution. We can do discretionary bonuses. We can raise salaries next year. We can do a lot of stuff once we now have that money.
Sure.
But we need that performance now. And see, that's the leadership gap. And one thing that for all of the listeners out there, right, especially those of you all that have children or have like nieces and nephews and everything, here's the funny thing, right? When we taught our children to walk, we didn't do a lot of teaching, did we? It wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh, wait. You got to balance yourself. You got to make sure you put your
Yeah.
left foot in front of your right
Yeah.
foot. You got to use
Yeah.
this muscle. And there's not all of that, right? What did we do? We made sure that we mitigated for catastrophic failure. We made sure they couldn't die, right? There's no sharp objects. We covered up all the outlets. We made sure that the couches and everything, there was nothing where they could just fall and
The
bust their head,
corners. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
right? Corners, all the different things. And then we let them fall a lot. And when they fell, we celebrated the things that they did that were positive, that were in the right direction. And we helped them to get up and let them know that, no, on the floor, that's not where you're supposed to be. Come on, you can do it. Do it again. We encouraged, we did all of this stuff, again, optimizing the environment for growth. And also, we demonstrated what good looked like and we called good out whenever we saw it. When we were able to do that, amazingly, kids learn how to walk and they learn how to run and they learn it really, really fast.
Love that. What an
Right.
incredible analogy. Yeah, man, I love it. Well, one of the things I tell our boys, for as a dad, is when they
Mm-hmm.
fall, I say it's okay to fall, but we get back up.
Exactly.
We always get back up. And so one of the things we say around our organization is, I don't mind if you make a mistake. I just don't want you to
Mhm.
continue to make it. Right?
That part.
I want you to continue. We're going to push the edge. We're going to continue to drive to provide a level of service within our organizations
Mhm.
that is not seen. And so when you're striving
Yes.
to do those things, striving to get outside that box that you're talking about, you're going to make
Mhm.
mistakes. I love
Exactly.
it. I love it, man.
I love it, brother. So you're creating that environment and you see that your people, once they know that it's okay, they're like, oh, let me try this. And you start to create a culture where people are innovative, where people take initiative, where people try things, and where there's not judgment, even if there's constructive criticism, right? Because one of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Maya Angelou, and she says it like this: we have to give ourselves grace for what we didn't know when we didn't know it. When you know better, do better.
I
And
love
that's
that. Yeah.
the overarching rule that we try to have is for my leaders and for those that I coach, that's what you want your environment to be. If you didn't know, we got it. Now that you know, do better. Hold yourself to that standard.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's keep raising the standard. I love that.
Exactly.
I love
Exactly.
it.
So then
All right. So let's
the
finish out the empower.
there we go. So the W is watch and learn. And once you've set the stage, it's important to be able to step back. And Michael Gerber talks about this in the E Myth Revisited, right?
Yep.
You've got to learn how to work on your business instead of working in your business. And this comes from a lot of the work that I did with Lean and Six Sigma. Taichi Ono used to have this Ono circle where he would literally take managers and he would draw a circle on the ground and he would put them on the floor in the manufacturing plant. He would say, stand right here. And they would have to watch and just watch everybody perform. And you'd be amazed at how much you can actually understand about the obstacles that are in the way and the problems that exist in your system and all of the bottlenecks and all the things if you just take the time to slow down and watch your people,
Love
right?
it.
So many business owners are going a mile a minute and they forget that you've got to watch people. You got to, in the Marine Corps, we say, inspect what you expect,
Yep.
right?
Amen. I
And
love
so
it.
that's the W. And that gives you then the things that need to get fixed. But again, if you're trying to engage your team and you're trying to get a lot of stuff off your plate, it's not your job to fix it. We've got to take off the chief problem solver hat and put on our chief obstacle remover. Mm. And removing obstacles is not necessarily you doing the work, it's you facilitating the process. And that's where we get to our next E, which is to engage their inner problem solver.
Nice. Yeah.
Right. So
I love
instead of
that. So
me
tell me
going,
more.
when I see that there's a bottleneck, right? When I see that there's an issue, when I see that somebody's doing something wrong, instead of me going and saying, hey, I would like you to do it this way instead. Now I'm micromanaging. Now they just are, their mind is shut off. They're just doing their job until they get told to do something different. Mm-mm. That's not what I want to do. What I want is when I see a problem, I want to see how they would solve the problem. I want to start teaching them and training them how to think like I think. So I want to coach them through the process instead of telling them what to do. I want to say, hey, I'm noticing that you're moving from here to here and back every time you do this. How much time do you think it's taking you to walk back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? And they're like, oh, well, I hadn't even thought about that. Well, how much time do you think it's taking? Oh, it's probably about 10 seconds a piece. All right. So how many pieces you do in an hour? Oh, we probably do about 100 pieces in an hour. Okay. So 10 seconds and you're doing 100 pieces in an hour. So that's a lot of, it's a lot of walking back and forth, right? It's probably 1,000 seconds out of the hour that you're walking back and forth. Imagine how many you could get done if we were closer. What could we do to maybe move this closer or to shorten that time? Right. And eventually they then say, oh, well, if I just stack this stuff over here instead of putting it over there, then, and they figure out the solution. And instead of just telling them what to do, I've now equipped them with a way to break the problem down. And when that's the norm, when you're constantly coaching, then the uptake on problem solving exponentially grows in your organization.
Love that. Yeah, what an incredible distinction, right? To get them thinking in that way instead of you're required to run everything through me. Peter Drucker, the
Mhm.
bottlenecks are always at the top, right? We're the rate limiting step for
Exactly.
growth within our organization. I say that a lot on this podcast, but it is so
Mhm.
true. And so if we allow our team to become problem solvers in their arenas, man, the throughput is amazing.
Exactly. And that becomes exponential growth, right? Because now you've got a bunch of different problem solvers. Now only the most severe problems bubble up to your desk instead of all of the problems. I remember one of my clients, she was so they basically were a part supplier for cell phone mechanics and cell
Okay.
phone repair stores. And so you got a lot of these little parts, most of them, let's say 90% of them or so cost less than $25, right? But every return had to go through her desk. She was the chief of operations. Every return, every refund that they were going to give to a client had to go through her desk. And so, of course, she's overwhelmed with all the stuff because they're doing, $4 million a year in revenue and everything. So it's a lot of stuff that comes across her desk. And when we did this analysis and we looked at the whole process and we looked at where the bottleneck was, it was like, oh, here's the bottleneck. So I asked her one question. I was like, what's the level of mistake, right? When we talk about catastrophic failure again, what's the level of mistake that is really detrimental to the organization? What's the level of mistake if they gave the wrong refund, if they refunded and it was wrong? What's the level that you feel like would be detrimental, would be problematic? She was like, well, I guess if they did something, a part that was more than $25, that would be problematic. I was like, okay, good. So everything $25 and less, they can refund as they need to and you'll be able to deal with the trends. But anything above $25, then they're going to go ahead and it's going to go to you, right? So we set that up, and then we did the numbers afterwards, and it was like 90% of the decisions that she had to make just went away,
Amazing.
right?
What an
And
incredible capacity you just created for her.
exactly, right? And at the same time, her people were making the same yes no decisions that she was making on those products that were less than $25 anyway. So it wasn't as if they that's the reason why she was comfortable with those because everybody knew what the kind of go no go
Sure.
criteria was for those. But she hadn't put two and two together. And so it took us sitting there and kind of breaking it down before she was able to break it out. And it saved her tons of time and it saved them tons of money because now she's using her time to do process improvement rather than menial tasks that aren't necessary for her to do. Right. And so the last R in the empower method is that you want to reward what you want to continue.
Okay.
Right. So often we forget as business owners, right? I've heard people say this a ton of times, right? Well, they're just doing their job, right? Why should I do more? They get paid to do their job. It's like, no, again, they get paid not to get fired. If you want them to be doing excellence, if you want them to be stepping outside of the box, if you want them to be innovating, if you want them to be figuring out better and faster and cheaper ways to do this business, you want to reward what you want to continue because the way the brain works is that when there's a trigger as in a stimulus that says, hey, I need to do something different. You do a behavior. When you get a reward, your brain says, oh, this is good. Let's make that happen again. Let's do that faster. Let's make it easier. But when you don't get a reward, your brain actually says, oh, that was a waste of energy. let's not do that again. Let's make it harder for us to do that thing. And so we go back and we backslide to the things that were less beneficial, less efficient, because at least those get the reward of being done
Sure.
rather than being done faster or whatever. And so many times business owners think that the reward has to be like monetary, or it's got to be, pizza or a vacation or all the rest of that. Sometimes just I really appreciate you for seeing that there was a problem and making that happen. That's exactly what we need in this company. You're doing a great job, and you're upholding our core values. Thank you so much. That type of reward, which is easy and free to give, can make so much of an impact for
I
those that
love
work
that.
for you.
Just acknowledging your team, right? That
Yes.
it's so easy to, as an owner, you walk into
Hmm.
the business and you walk past all these people that are making the business work. And you
Hmm.
got your head down, you got your headphones in because you're on a call or you're listening to something, and you just kind of move into your office and you just
Hmm.
missed all these interactions, or you go out for the day, or you go out for a meeting. Man, it's so easy, and it's so easy to do that, right? Because my time, I don't want to get distracted. I know if I stop by their desk, it's going to be 10 minutes. I just don't have 10
Yep.
minutes.
Yep.
But man, that few minutes at the end of
Yeah.
the day makes
Yeah.
such a difference. I love that.
Exactly. And if you systematize it, you don't have to worry about getting kind of sucked in, right? Because the key thing, there's two keys to when you're giving praise. You want it to be specific, right?
Okay.
And you want it to be actionable. So what I mean by specific is you don't want to just give generic praise. Oh, I really appreciate you. You're a great worker. Yeah, okay, what you do, right? It doesn't connect in their minds to what they've done that they can do more of. So you want to think about, and one of the things that I tell my clients is every day, just pick one person to start this habit. Pick one person that you saw do something that was beneficial for the business and articulate what that thing was, that one thing. And you just watch, you'll see. Because not only is it specific, but it's also actionable, aka they can do it again. They can over and over and over say, oh, that thing you like, let me do that again tomorrow. And let me do that again the next day. Let me
Yeah.
do that again the next day, right? And what you'll see when you do it, when you pull somebody aside and you say, hey, I saw you doing XYZ yesterday, and I just want you to know that I really appreciate it. It really makes my day a lot easier when I know that I've got people like you taking care of these types of things, right? Watch their face and how they light up, right? And even the introverts that you have, even the people that are really like praise averse, you'll see there's a light in their eyes, right? When they get that praise, it's so powerful. I remember I learned this from the Gracie. So um one of the things that I did when I was in the Marine Corps, I was a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu instructor. And when I was getting my instructor certification, one of the things that they talked about, and this is a secondary power of praise that I hadn't even, paid attention to, but it makes perfect sense. It's why we have ceremony when we give awards and when we do things in the
Sure.
Marine Corps. It's not only the person that hears you giving them the praise personally, but everybody else that is in earshot of you giving that person the praise has now just been reinforced that, oh, that's what I need to do to get
I
a shout
love
out.
that.
And
Yeah.
now they're learning what you want to reinforce as well. So it's a force multiplier by giving praise. One of the companies that I work with now, every Monday morning, we have a big meeting with the entire team. It's about 20 people on the meeting. And every Monday, there's a section that is just there for peer recognition. And we recognize people for upholding in some way the core values. And so you get to see every week somebody getting recognized and how they're getting recognized for the core values. It is a tremendous culture shifter. It's amazing.
I love that. Yeah, we started doing that a few years ago. We do our all staff days, and it's one of the things we do, five things, and one of them is culture celebration. And
Hmm.
all that time is for is celebrating our staff of how they've lived, upheld our core values. Because we said
Yes.
these matter to us, and so if they matter to us, we've got to encourage them, we've got to reward them, we've got to talk about them, right? It's got to be part of our culture. So I love that
Hmm.
distinction. All right, so Robert, you didn't stop with that book, right? You
Hmm.
wrote a new book. So
Yes.
tell me about your new book.
Perfect. So I know when we were talking a little bit and we were talking about optimizing your environment for growth, I know that's one of the areas that's really difficult because like how do I and delegate as well? How do I talk to people in the right way? How do I figure out how to, you know, say the right things to get people inspired, to get people excited, get people to see what I want them to see. And so one of the books that I wrote to really deal with that specifically is a book called Courageous Communication, right? Because a lot of times as business owners, we can think about, the positive stuff is easy to talk about, right?
Sure.
But what about when I've got people that aren't showing up on time? What about when I've got people that are not contributing the way that we need them to contribute? What if I've got people that need to be put on a performance improvement plan? How do I get them back excited? And I really wrote this book for leaders, but also for people who feel like they're not necessarily in a position to kind of just tell somebody what to do. Especially, what about if you're in an organization where you have to lead up, or where you're leading your peers? What about if you're in a partnership experience with your entrepreneurship journey, and you can't really tell your partner what to do, and you get these difficult conversations, right? And basically what we did is I put together 5 core strategies that everybody can use, that no matter who you are talking to, no matter what the leadership, title or authority section is, or any of the rest of that, you can figure out how to influence people and get them excited about what you're talking about. And there's 5 really key things that people have to pay attention to.
I love that. Can you just rattle them off really quick as we kind of come
Yeah.
to the end of our time here? I don't
Yeah.
want you to give it all away. I want people to buy your books,
No
for
problem, no
sure.
problem at all. So the 5 core strategies, number one, you've got to define success. And most people need to learn that they've got to define success for themselves, right? You got to know what you want, because so often we get stuck in the don't wants, and we get stuck talking about all the stuff that we don't want. But here's the funny thing. If you want apple pie, but you tell somebody, hey, I know I don't want peach cobbler, I don't want cherry cobbler, and I don't want I don't want ice cream. And then somebody brings you blueberry pie, right? You're still not happy, but technically they listen to you,
Yeah,
right? And so often we
great
get
point.
stuck in that
Yeah,
space. So we've got to be able to define success and be able to articulate what good looks like. First thing. Once we know what success looks like, now we know where the conversation needs to end.
okay,
But it doesn't start with us. Remember, whenever you're talking to somebody else, the other person is important. And people care a lot more about knowing that you care than they do about knowing what you know, right? There's a quote that
yeah,
goes, right, and I just butchered it the way that it generally goes. People don't care what you know until they know how much you care, right?
yeah,
And so step two is to lean into curiosity. If you all don't seem aligned in the beginning, start asking questions, start figuring out what is it that you don't see about their perspective. If their situation doesn't make sense to you, if something that they're saying is just crazy and bonkers, right? Especially in the climate that we have today, because people on both sides of the aisle are sitting there throwing bombs at
sure,
each other and everything,
yeah,
acting
sure,
like we're not all Americans. And the whole thing about it is, if you don't understand how somebody could see that way, the one thing that you know is that you have a blind spot, because it's clear that they see that way. It's clear that it makes sense to them. So it's not that it's impossible for it to make sense. It's just that there's something that you're not seeing. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but for you not to be able to understand how they could think that way, that means that you're missing something.
great point.
And so when you lean into curiosity, what it allows you to do is it allows you to really understand the other person. And it has the added benefit of it makes them feel seen. It makes them feel heard. It makes them understand that you're not an adversary, that you're not just trying to get them to change, that you actually care about them as a person,
Sure, yeah.
right?
The curiosity draws them in instead of makes them defensive.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Exactly. The walls come down. So then step three is you want to then experience true empathy. You want to see the world from their perspective. Again, you don't have to agree with them, but you want to see it from their side. And you want to express that you can see it from their side, that you can understand how they could see what they would see. Because again, that tears that wall down, because now they know that you're not judging them and caught, right. A lot of times we ask those why questions, right? Why'd you do that? If you can,
Sure.
if you can put a comma, you idiot, after a question, you probably shouldn't ask it, right?
Oh, what a great distinction. I love that so
Right.
much.
And so that's the third step. And now you've kind of earned the right to have a discussion. So step four, we talk about, now you get to talk about what you're seeing. You get to create an inclusive understanding of the situation. Hey, have you looked at this? What do you think about that? What about this problem that I'm dealing with? Right? You want to, again, get them to start seeing your side, not as the right way, not as the definitive, but as another perspective of what
Sure.
they're dealing with. Because now you two are looking at a problem that has multifacets, and you're looking at it together, not as adversaries, as collaborators.
Love that.
And then the fifth step is then, from that position, from that posture, now you can start to figure out a win-win scenario, a scenario where you both can get what you want, right? And oftentimes now they're actually willing for you to help them figure out what they want. Because a lot of times people are stuck in the don't wants as well. And so a lot, if you start right away trying to go to where you want, they're like, wait a minute, that's in the direction of something I don't want. I
Sure.
don't know if I want to do
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they don't know what they want. So once you create a win-win scenario, then you can figure it out. Now, I know we went through that pretty quickly. One of the things, one of the free gifts that we set up is we've created a primer for people to go through that framework so that with any conversation you can kind of look at what are the questions that I need to be asking, right? And we've got two sets of questions. You've got questions that you can ask internally, right? For you to be prepared to have the conversation. And then for each core strategy, we've also got questions that you can ask externally to your conversation partner to help facilitate the conversation. And that's something that, anybody that wants to get a copy of that, they can go ahead and click the link in the show
I
notes.
love that. Yeah, man. Thank you for offering that free resource for us so much. If you are following along with this and you do want to know more information, it is in the show notes. All those links there. So Robert, man, I appreciate your time. Appreciate you sharing. As we kind of come to the summation of our conversation,
Mm-hmm.
when you look back, one of the questions I'd love to kind of end on, just as a perspective question,
Mm-hmm.
if you could go back to younger Robert,
Mm-hmm.
to say 10 years ago, go back to
Mm-hmm.
younger Robert, what's some advice that you would give him?
Yeah. I think the number one thing that I would tell myself if I was talking to me 10 years ago would be realize that it everything that shines isn't or everything that glitters isn't gold, right? It's not
Amen.
it's not as amazing. You're not as far behind as you feel like you are. And the people that seem like they're doing just gangbusters and an amazing job, like know that they all have a backstory. 10 years ago, I thought that everybody just, they made it in business and they had a good idea and then the money just came in. And if that wasn't the case, then you were doing something wrong and it was all because of you. Right. And I remember I had a mentor that kind of disabused me of that. And she was like, hey, you need to understand, like, this is everybody's journey. Like, business is hard. Three out of 100 people become millionaires in the country because it's not easy.
Yeah.
Right. And that's that you forget whatever if you want to say anything about any of the systemic issues, if you want to talk about racism, misogyny, right? What country you're from, what language you speak, all the rest of that type of stuff, all of that, 3%. Right. And so
Yeah.
it's still not like there's this huge number of people that are being successful. And more importantly, another stat that I learned that was really fun, that was really fundamental to kind of me being able to give myself grace was 80% or 8 out of 10 millionaires were bankrupt or nearly bankrupt at some point in time in their journey to being a millionaire.
Wow.
And it's
That's a
like,
fantastic distinction. Yeah.
right? Like I always thought that, if because when I first started my business, I told you just a little bit when we off air, right? I did the leap. I jumped in and with both feet. Now I had run businesses before, kind of as part-time gigs. I ran a jujitsu school. I had a Amway distributorship at one point in time, right? I did all the
Sure.
different things, but I had never required that all of my income come from a business. And I mean, there were some bumps and there were some bruises. There were some times where I wasn't sure where my next check was going to come from. I was doing all, ship shopping and,
Sure.
varsity tutor
Oh yeah.
job and all
Oh yeah.
different types of things. Right. And got to the point where I just didn't know where things were going to come from, and it was so beautiful because we got this. I remember one of my lowest times. My wife had went and got a box from there's a local organization that kind of helps families, and she had went and got a box like a box of food, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I can't provide for my family. And she was like, I didn't know, I just went by there to check it out. Like, we're still good, but I wanted to see. But it was like we needed, and it was that week. And it was just a week that things were out. But I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And it's such a blessing now to see on the other end, right? We give that organization that gave us that box of food thousands of dollars a year in donations now
Amazing.
because of the growth that we've been able to make, right? I have a nonprofit that I sponsor, and there's a bunch of different things that we've been able to do. God is blessed. But the me 10 years ago didn't realize that that is the way, that that is the journey, that the person who just like hits and everything is great and they never have any struggles, like that is the anomaly. That
Yeah.
is the abstraction. That is the one in a million, right? Situation. The majority of people that are on this road with you are struggling. And if you see them in the glitz and the glam, you're just not seeing the story before the glitz and the glam,
Yeah.
and know that that exists for everybody. Right. And I've
Man,
talked to
that's
thousands of
that
business owners
just
since
such a
then.
good
And
word.
it's, yeah. So anyway, I can go on and on, but I just want to that's the thing I hope that I leave with everybody. Like, don't allow your current circumstances to convince you that calling, that mission, that idea that you felt deep in your soul, that you knew that you were supposed to be doing something else. Don't allow it to trick you out of your calling. Remember that, right? The race is not given to the strong nor to the swift, but to the person that endures to the end. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Amen. Amen, brother. Well, Robert, man, we're at the end of our time. Thank you for generously giving the resources that you have and the wisdom that you shared. Somebody's listening to this and they say, man, I want to know Robert more. Please don't give up their cell phone number. That's not what I'm expecting. But how they get in touch with you from consulting, from just getting to know you, get connected. If they want to buy books from you personally, how do they get
Mhm.
connected to you?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things they could do. Number one, you can shoot us an email at support@tllcv.com. Again, that's Tango, Lima, Charlie, Golf.com. And that's the easiest way to get in touch with us. Click the link. If you click the link and you get some of the downloads and everything, you can get into our ecosystem there. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, right? And if you just search Robert Heath Sr., so that's Robert Heath SR 007 for all my James Bond fans out
That's
there.
right. Go Bond, baby.
There we go. You can get me on LinkedIn as well, and so we can connect there.
Love it. Well, brother, thank you for your time. Thank you for your mission. Thank you for the way that you're impacting people, the books that you're writing, the future books that you will write. Thank you for your transparency, man. It's so refreshing to hear from you. Just kind of the way that we ended this conversation around this idea that it's not always the mountaintop, right? And people know that in their personal lives, but so often we don't talk about that in our business lives. And
Mhm.
it's such a challenging road, and it's why so many
Yeah.
businesses don't succeed. But I think so many of them just quit too soon. If
Yes.
I was going to give you my opinion, so thank
Yeah.
you for
No,
being
I
here,
agree with you.
everybody. Thank you for following along here at Market Mavericks. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Market Mavericks. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to take your own adventure to the next level. Don't forget to follow the show to keep up with our latest episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, share it with others who could benefit. And hey, if you know a market maverick who has a story that needs to be heard, please drop their name in the comments. We would love to bring their insights to the show. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and leading with purpose.